The studio lights burned hot, but the tension in the room was even hotter. Millions of Americans were tuned in live when the unthinkable happened. On what was supposed to be just another spirited political debate, Greg Gutfeld leaned across the desk, his trademark smirk plastered on his face, and delivered a line that would echo across the nation. "John Kennedy," he said with sharpness that cut like glass, "maybe you should just go back to where you came from." The room went silent. Even the audience, usually quick with laughter or applause, froze. Cameras zoomed in on Senator John Kennedy, and for a moment, he didn't move. His expression didn't flicker with anger or shock. Instead, he sat there, calm, steady, as though he had been waiting his whole life for that very moment. What happened next would not only silence Gutfeld but would also reverberate far beyond the studio walls, reshaping the conversation about identity, belonging, and what it means to be American. Kennedy leaned forward, his voice low but commanding, a tone that pulled every ear toward him. "Greg," he began, "I'll go back to where I came from if you'll allow me to take America with me, because where I came from is right here." He paused. The studio was still. His words carried the weight of his childhood in rural Louisiana, the son of hard-working parents who had taught him to value grit, decency, and love of country. He spoke of dirt roads and small-town schools, of neighbors who shared meals when times were hard, of nights where the only entertainment was family gathered on a porch, telling stories under the stars. "That's where I came from," Kennedy continued, his southern drawl steady and clear, "and I'll tell you something else. Where I came from is not a zip code, it's not a wealth bracket, it's not about whether your accent sounds polished enough for television. Where I came from is America's heart, the same heart that beats in factory workers, in farmers, in teachers, in every man and woman who loves this country despite its flaws." The silence turned heavy, but not uncomfortably transformative. Even Gutfeld's smirk faded as Kennedy's words built momentum. "You see, Greg, when you tell a man to go back to where he came from, you're forgetting something. Where we came from is exactly what built this nation. Immigrants who crossed oceans, soldiers who left their homes to defend ours, mothers and fathers who worked double shifts just to make sure their kids had a shot at a better life. Where we came from is our foundation. Where we're going, that's our responsibility." By now, the studio audience was leaning forward, hanging on every word. Some nodded, some wiped away tears. America was not just listening, it was remembering. Kennedy reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a worn, folded piece of paper. It was his father's letter, the one he had carried with him since his teenage years. He unfolded it carefully, his hands trembling slightly with emotion, and began to read. "My boy," the letter said in faded ink, "never let anyone make you feel less American because of where you were born, how you sound, or the roads you walked to get here. America is not a club you have to earn your way into. It's a promise that belongs to all of us. Guard that promise with your life." When Kennedy looked up, his eyes were misty. "This was written to me by a man who never made it to college, never sat under the lights of a studio like this, but he understood something that too many of us forget. America is not about telling people to leave, it's about giving people a reason to stay, to fight, to hope, and to build." A thunderous applause broke out. It wasn't the forced applause of a live audience sign. It was raw, real, born of hearts moved and minds awakened. People stood, some clapped, others cried. Kennedy hadn't raised his voice, but he had raised the nation's conscience. Greg Gutfeld, usually quick with the comeback, could only shift in his chair. For once, the man who thrived on sarcasm found no words to fire back. The clip spread across the internet like wildfire. Within hours, it was trending on every major platform. Comment sections flooded with stories from everyday Americans, immigrants, veterans, farmers, teachers, all sharing where they came from and what that meant to them. Hashtags like #WhereItCameFrom and #Kennedy response dominated social media, turning Kennedy's words into a national rallying cry. Even Kennedy himself seemed humbled by the response. In follow-up interviews, he insisted that it wasn't about him, it was about America rediscovering what unites us, rather than what divides us. Weeks later, a small-town teacher wrote online, "When Kennedy said where we came from is America's heart, My students and I stopped class to watch. For the first time, they believed that their stories, their families, their little towns mattered. That's the America I want them to grow up in. And so, what began as an insult turned into a movement. Kennedy's calm, heartfelt response had reminded a fractured nation that belonging isn't about exclusion, it's about connection. It's about carrying the stories of where we came from into the future we are building together. By the end, America was not stunned into silence, it was stunned awake. And the message lingered: where you came from is not something to be ashamed of, it's the very proof that you belong.